Hello and welcome to Cash Chats, the podcast from Be Clever with Your Cash that helps you make the most of your money. I'm Amelia Murray.
And I'm Andy Webb. In Your Money this week, we're looking at some of the top news stories from the last 7 days, including brand new rules when it comes to bank fraud, yet another Amazon Prime Day, plus are you holding on to points for too long? We've got all of that and our deals of the week, which include bank switching offers, wheels for free and a free pie. That and much more is episode 423 of Cash Chats. So Amelia, how has your week been? What's been going on with your money?
It's all been very good. I want to hark back to one of the deals from last week, which I took full advantage of, and it was the free Noops hot chocolate on the Friday. I don't think I've ever had a Noops before. So it's like those fancy kind of like Scandinavian hot chocolate shops. And they have like it's not just your instant hot chocolate, it's chocolate flakes mixed into milk. It's pretty intense. So basically I went and I got my freebie, which was great. I went for 70% chocolate. I didn't know what I was doing. What do I know what I like? I don't know, 70%. I was like, I'm going to go for the maximum chocolate. Had a sip in the morning and I was like, oh, bit much for me actually this time of morning, but I saved it, and then by the time I came around to drinking it and heating it up again, it had the most solid thick chocolate skin, which actually impressed me. Normally I think I'd be quite disgusted, but I was like, okay, cool, I'm getting some real chocolate in that. But it was great. It was a really good offer. And then if you go on the app, oh my god, it's so expensive. Like I was playing around with it and I think I managed to get hot chocolate up to like £8. And I was like, wow, okay, this is more expensive than a beer. But I was really pleased with it. And they might have got me, don't know if I'm a convert, but I am quite interested in buying the stuff I can bring home. But watch this space. But that's what those deals are for, aren't they? Reeling you in.
Yeah, that's the danger, isn't it? So like when we tell people about all these special offers and deals, there's a certain amount of self-analysis and self-restraint you have to put into things as well, particularly those like one freebie. At least you're not signing up for something on a regular basis. But when it's a free trial, the danger is they've sucked you in and then you're paying that month after month after month after month. Chocolate, hey, like we said last week as well, it's getting more expensive. I saw my friend again who works in ice cream last night, and again he was talking again about the price of chocolate again. It's going to be a big thing for us all. So get those freebies while you can. I had a thing this week, an email that came through that I thought would be interesting to share with people as well. So I talk about cashback a lot. I'm a big fan of cashback sites because they're a simple, easy thing that you can do to make a little bit of extra money on top of any other kind of savings and sales or offers that might be going along. So I'm a big fan of those. But the problem you get with them is these savings are never guaranteed. And the email that came through was actually about the Body Shop. So I had made a purchase from the Body Shop early this year. And obviously we've spoken about it here. The Body Shop had some issues. A number of stores have disappeared. It's went into receivership. It's got a new owner now, so it is still around. But because it's been taken over by a new owner, they're not honouring that previous cashback that I would have earned from this purchase. And, okay, fair enough. That's how it works. But I guess the point is, be really careful when you are using cashback sites that you're not buying something because of the amount of cashback you're getting, because it isn't ever guaranteed. You're better off, if you can, finding a voucher code. Now, if you can get a voucher code and cashback and they both work, then that's win-win. But if you've got things of the same amount, I'd always say voucher code because you're guaranteed that discount there and then, and just treat cashback as a nice little extra. The price you're getting itself has to be something you're willing to pay. Otherwise, you might end up, it wasn't much. Only I could talk about a couple of quid in cashback, but something to look out for, guys, if you're doing a similar thing. Gift cards, very similar again as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still waiting. Well, my boyfriend is still waiting via me to get that £56 from the bike he bought, which I mentioned in the podcast. I think it was the end of August. And I'm checking it and I'm like, I hope nothing happens to the company, obviously for, more significant reasons. But I'm kind of watching and waiting. So I'll let you know when I get it.
Should we jump onto the first story? And this is a big one. And you've been covering bank fraud for us for quite a bit this summer, particularly in terms of phones being stolen. But there have been some new rules announced, which I think are, good news, right?
Yeah. So we've mentioned this on the podcast before. These are these new fraud reimbursement rules that will be introduced on the 7th of October. So it's been in the making for a while. If we look at, the current fraud landscape, we've got this voluntary code, which has been in place since 2019. It's better than nothing, but because it's voluntary, only 23 banks and kind of other financial providers signed up. So there was already a huge gap in protection, and the rules themselves were quite vague and open to interpretation, which is why last year the refund rate was only about, it was only 67%. So there's still a significant number of people who aren't getting refunded when they've basically been the victims of crime. So these new rules were already, they seem to be better. So they're mandatory. So that's one massive difference. It's going to cover almost 1,000 payment service providers. So that's not just your banks and building societies. That's also these smaller kind of tech companies who also handle money. However, there is some controversy. So we spoke about on the podcast not that long ago, the maximum reimbursement rate has dropped. So it was £415,000, which has now been confirmed at £85,000. So already there's going to be people who, perhaps if they're falling victim to, solicitor scams where they're being tricked into sending their house deposit elsewhere, investment scams, as I mentioned before, these often are involved with like much larger sums than £85,000. So that's already something we've covered, and it's already ruffling a few feathers. But the latest discussion is that in the rules, the banks are able to charge you £100 excess on your loss. So you've lost your money, and they can take £100 out of the refund that they send you back. So the difference here is it's in the rules, but banks and providers, they don't have to charge you that. So we've already got this list of some providers who have said that they will not charge customers this. So TSB, Nationwide / Virgin Money, because of the merger, Clydesdale, Yorkshire Bank, and AIB, they've all kind of come out and said that they're not going to charge us £100 to scam victims. NatWest has said it might do. Meanwhile, Metrobank, Modular, and Zempler, which are two kind of smaller providers, have said they definitely will. Now, the issue here, £100 might not sound like a lot, but to a lot of people, it is a lot of money. And if we look at the stats last year, it would have meant that 58,000 people would not have been refunded anything at all.
That's mad, because the fraud was less than £100. So literally it was like,
Yeah.
right, well,
So
wow.
32% of scam losses are £100 or less. And then even when you've lost more than that, the fact that you've just been scammed and then you're having to, I guess, forfeit £100 for what, I think is a little bit of a sore point here. So yeah, there's already kind of, people are picking holes in these new rules. So I guess generally speaking, it's stronger protection than what we have now, but it's not, there's still ways that people are going to be missing out.
Yeah, and I think it's a real shame that bringing that limit down as well, that, most people, it's not going to be going beyond that. Same with the savings protection at that same level. For most people, that's not going to be an issue. But when these scams do come, and like you say, they take someone's life saving, and it's generally going to be vulnerable people who fall for this. I mean, everyone falls for this, right? But particularly those bigger ones often can be people who are more vulnerable. And it's gone like that. Yes, you've still got 85k, but if you've got a lot more than that and it's your life savings, this is how you're going to fund your retirement or whatever it might be, or buying a new house or whatever it might be. That's something that could be massive amounts that are gone. It seems odd for probably not that many cases which go above it, but there we are. Right. This story might be, hang on, didn't we talk about this one in the summer? But yes, we did, but it's back. There's another Prime Day. Prime Big Deals Day is the official title, but this is another sale that Amazon is running for its members. It's taking place next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, so the 8th and 9th of October. And like those other offers, it is promising all these great prices and exclusive deals for people who are willing to, put the cash up and pay for the membership every single month. And this is just the start of things. This kind of October feels early for this, but we aren't far away, I hate to say it, but from the Black Friday sales, which although Black Friday is the end of November, we know they all start things at the start of November. And then we're going to go into the Christmas sales and then the New Year sales. And these flurry of promotions, all designed to get us to spend money, all designed really to spend more than we intended over a big, long period. So we have to be careful of this kind of stuff, don't we? You can't sort of enter this sort of like, oh, great, chance to get a bargain. They're out to get they're not doing it for our benefit, basically, are they?
Oh yeah, it's not out of the goodness of their hearts. I am deeply cynical of any kind of discount day. Oh my goodness. I'm just like, I think I'm like allergic to them. I see them and it might just be, I don't know, like I'm anti-hype or kind of, I don't want to get involved in these kind of like big things that everyone's talking about. But I don't buy into it. That was a nice little play on words, which I didn't mean. But I kind of, I look at these deals and I'm like, they're short lived. They're enticing you in. They're creating kind of this, use it or lose it or miss out and those kind of things. And I'm like, actually, the way I kind of approach things is it actually takes quite a lot of time, but basically I'm quite dedicated to deals. So I'm never in a hurry. And if I do feel like I'm in a hurry, then I'll probably withdraw further. But it's, yeah, kind of taking my time, doing some research, and then deciding on the price that I'm happy to pay rather than, your Black Fridays or your 2-day discount days where it's like, right, you've got this 24-hour, 48-hour window. And yeah, live or live with regret.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. The pressure that's on these things, particularly not just like with those 2 days of sales, but within that, you've got discounts that are only available for an hour. There's only 50 of them available, whatever it might be. All this pressure to get you to spend without doing that due diligence that you were saying, without doing that price comparison, without looking at the price history, all these kind of things that can help you decide, is this actually a good price or not? So you've got to be really, really careful of all of that next week and beyond when any of these sort of promotions are running. But if you shop with intent, i.e., you look for the things you actually know you need and actually want, and then do that research, sometimes you can get some really good prices and low prices on these things. So I'm not like one of these people who's kind of just ignore these sales completely because they're just a complete con and a complete rip-off. There's a big aspect to it. But I think if there are things right now that you do need, and they're on your list, or if you haven't got a list, maybe start writing a list now. It's not too late to be, not too early even, to be thinking about Christmas presents for people. Have a look, and maybe there are things you can pick up there, as long as it is a good price and it is something you can afford. What I would say as well, though, is we'll come to some early deals that we've spotted already for Prime Day when we get to Deals of the Week at the end of the episode and give you some things that we think could represent decent value for money. But the really important thing is, if you don't have Prime already and you do want to take advantage of this sale, is you probably don't have to pay for it, at least not full price. Because this little trick that lots of people don't realize is that free trial, that 30-day free trial that you get with Amazon, that's not a one-off like most free trials. They let you get it again every 13 months. So basically, a month after that initial trial finishes, you can get another one. So 12 months since it last finishes, 13 months since you last took one out, it's almost certainly going to be on your account. Or someone else in your household might be in that same situation and they can have that free trial. So you can take advantage of this sale, see if there's anything you want, but we're having to pay that $8.99 just to access it. So that's my kind of top tip for Amazon. And so we'll come back later on to a few things that might be worth looking at if you are in the market for things.
Now on to selling from buying. My next story is quite big news, actually, especially if you're an eBay fan. So we've had eBay announce that it's scrapping the fees for sellers. And this comes after earlier in the year when fashion listing fees were ditched. And it kind of now includes basically almost anything for private sellers. So that's people like you and me, people decluttering, people just popping, the odd thing up, but also people who want to sell up to 300 things a month. So it's covering lots of normal people who aren't kind of professional traders. So it's scrapping the final value fees and the regulatory operating fee, which was quite a controversial thing introduced. And the only things it seems to not be including is cars, motorbikes, and vehicles. It seems to be moving more towards the Depops and the Vinted in terms of its structure and its pricing, as lots of young people are now kind of using Vinted and Depop. So competition's kind of heating up in this area. And it's streamlined the collection process as well, in line with kind of Vinted, where people prepay for these kind of secure ways of getting their packages. Also, there's some changes around the earnings. So from the 16th of October, instead of getting paid directly to your PayPal or your bank account, it's now going to appear as a balance. So be really careful of that, with holding your money in kind of any account. It's the same rules that apply to gift cards or with any account that's holding your money. I was with Vinted, when I sell something, I withdraw it immediately, just so, nothing kind of can affect the balance within the company. They've run this test in Germany already, and they saw a real uplift in business. So again, it's not a business that's doing this out of the kindness of its heart. It's definitely going to be good for its income and its profits. but it's good news for us as well, because it means you'll be taking more money home.
Yeah, and potentially as well, when you're buying things, I guess there's a chance that people might be willing to lower prices down, accept a lower offer if you're, making a bid or whatever, because they don't have to work out, well, actually, I want this amount of money for it. And whenever I've sold on eBay, it's like, I want this amount, and I'm going to have the fee, so I make it this amount to make it all add up. So potentially might be good for both sellers and buyers. One interesting thing from this story, though, that I wasn't really aware of this because I don't really use Vinted and Depop, but there are potentially, the spectre of the fees being moved on to buyers. So maybe we might at some point have to pay more as a buyer for whatever it could be around about security and things like that. But at the moment, you can list stuff, you can sell it, and you will get all of that cash. So hopefully you'll sell more, which is good. And also, we spoke a while ago about the proper retailers, not private retail, not people like you and I selling, but some of the bigger guys. I know this relates just to private sellers, but I did notice before how some of those big shops like Rough Trade, I think was one of the ones I saw in particular, will whack prices up compared to buying off their own website. And I do wonder if suddenly, if normal sellers are selling theirs at a lower price because they don't need to worry about the fees, whether that could see other those big commercial sellers lower price as well. But again, that's going to vary by sector. But it's worth having a look if you're buying something, see what is there. So the other big story that happened this week that I'm sure most people have already seen was around the energy price cap. And I've spoken about that before when it was announced back in August. The increase that took place on Tuesday for the unit price and the standing charge was roughly about 10% higher. So that doesn't necessarily mean your bill goes up by 10% over the next few months because it's all down to your actual energy usage. But The Guardian has reported that as a result of this 10% increase, 46% of adults say they will use less energy this winter. That's almost half of people are like, these bills are crazy, I'm going to have to use less than I was. And this isn't like a brand new thing. We've been talking about this for 4 years now. So it's, again, back to that thing, worrying how many people are so worried about their energy bills.
Yeah, I think it's really sad, and I think there's definitely this sort of tale of two halves, but everyone's affected. So we've talked about it before around the winter months. A lot of kind of vulnerable pensioners who are choosing between eating and heating. We talk about people who are in fuel poverty or people who are financially vulnerable, and the fact that they're having to ration not just the heating but the power. So lights, sitting in a dark room, or putting the extra jumper on or layering up with clothes. And I think it was last year, the really controversial um ways that some energy companies were kind of offering guidance, which was kind of insulting to people, where it was like, okay, actually it's a lot more extreme than just putting another jumper on. There's people not being able to use their cookers or their the white goods in their house because they're so concerned about how they're going to afford it. So I think we have this, I think that's getting worse. I think with the kind of rising bills and the rising cost of the unit price. But then I think it's also dominating a lot of conversations around people who aren't necessarily vulnerable. So kind of middle class people or even kind of upper class people, because we're all having to pay more and we're all kind of seeing our bills go up. And now I came from a cold house. I was just chatting about this earlier with my boyfriend. I came from a cold house where it was very much like, if you're cold, put another jumper on. So I'm kind of used to the more frugal approach to energy bills. Whereas my boyfriend, oh my God, he came from a house where the heating was on all the time. And now we live together, and I don't know, he's definitely changed his ways, but it is more of a conversation. And, I was a student many years ago actually now, but we were, having that conversation with, all the adults in the house, and we all came from, different backgrounds, had different understandings of bills and warmth, and having to negotiate that as kind of like an adult conversation was, yeah, really interesting. But yeah, I think lots of people are now finding themselves talking much more about it and being much more mindful about their usage and, yeah, how they're going to be comfortable in their houses.
Yeah, and I did a survey earlier this year for our newsletter subscribers, and thank you so much to everyone who did reply. And a big chunk of those people who respond, we know are they're all right. They're comfortable on the whole. They're not necessarily in that kind of struggling space. Obviously, a lot of people who maybe just about managing, so who knows kind of what one little thing can push them down to struggling, or a bit of something good, push them up to comfortable. But that's how we know what our audience is roughly on the whole, not everyone, but on the whole in that kind of space. Yet when we shared in the newsletter a few weeks ago, might even be just last week, that Octopus was giving some of its customers, its vulnerable customers, free electric blankets. It was one of the top clicked links in that newsletter. So again, lots of people, doesn't matter who you are, worried about this and trying to find those ways to try and bring down those costs. What we're actually going to do, I mean, I don't know about for most of you, I'm sure it's probably been a while since you've actually done any kind of switching or fixing on your energy bills, because it's been a while since we've been able to do it. Really, only really a few months realistically where that's been sort of back on the radar. So what I will do on Tuesday on the podcast is sort of talk a little bit about that, fixing and switching, and those different things we can do and the little things to be aware of, which might help bring down those unit costs below the price cap. So the price cap's gone up 10%, might actually, for once, for the first time in, last few months, first time in years, be able to beat those price caps with a fix. But again, I'll cover that on Tuesday in more detail.
So it's Free Wills Month, which is interesting because it's every October and March. So we actually have two free wills. But at this time of year, charities team up with solicitors and offer anyone 55 and over a free simple will. So that's kind of going on the whole of this month. There's only so many slots, so the advice is to kind of get in there quick. However, it's also Will Aid, which is in November. However, the slots are you can book a slot now. And with this, it's slightly different. You can get a will for a £100 donation or £180 for a joint mirror will. And again, it's like a similar scheme with charities partnering up with legal firms. But with this one, there's no age restrictions. So again, with that in mind, book your slot now because they do tend to go fast. But it kind of brings me on to thinking quite a lot about wills. So I don't have one. I know, burn me. But I have been thinking about it quite a lot recently. So my boyfriend and I bought a house together 18 months ago. And when you buy a house and you're not married, living in sin, you're often advised to get the will there and then because suddenly you have more assets and, you kind of want to know that they're going to the right place or the right people if something should happen. So I've been trying to raise the conversation with my boyfriend over the last couple of weeks and he's just not having it. I'm like, would you... I was like, he's not having it. He's not receptive at all. I love him, but I don't know why I think it's a difficult conversation for lots of people to have because it is a little bit morbid. You are thinking about the worst case scenario. But I was trying to explain to him that if something happened to him because we're not married, I'm going to tell you the order of people who would have a stake on my house. It goes parents, full siblings, half siblings, grandparents, uncles and aunts, and then half uncles and half aunts.
What's a half uncle?
Yeah, I had to Google it because I was confused, but essentially it's the half brother of your parent. And they could be close or they could not be close. But essentially, if you're an unmarried couple, you have no rights to anything. And so I just had this fear where I was like, oh, if something happens, I'd be dealing with that, but then, the grief. And then someone could come knocking on my door, like a half uncle who no one's ever heard of, who's like, actually, I have a claim on your house. And I'm like, but what about me and the cat? So so I was just like, it started not stressing me out, but it's definitely worth a conversation. Not just in our scenario where we're not married. I mean, that was what my boyfriend said. He was like, rather than agree to get a will with me, he was like, well, why don't we just get married? And I'm like, I'm not, we are actually engaged, but that will come in the future. But it's also really important if you have young children, if something happens to you, it will be able to you'll be able to make plans for them in the event that something happens to you. And also deciding that the right people get the things that you want them to have.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's so common for people not to want to talk about what happens when either they die or when someone else dies. And I mean, there's so many levels of this as well, like parents, like having conversation with the parents about what they want, their wishes are, and all this kind of stuff, because it's going to be, something to need sorting out at some point. But just on that very base level, you're bang on right, particularly people who are married but living together. You need to get something in place to, just for your own protection and your own assets. It's really important. And this scheme is a good one. Like the will. So I did the will aid offer a couple of years ago. So that's the one people are booking for now for appointments in November. So it's worth talking about it now rather than leaving it too late when you can't get an appointment. As you said, there's no age restriction on this one. And we gave a charitable donation to one of the participating solicitors near us. So that money was going to a good cause. Obviously the solicitors are doing it a little bit out of, trying to sort of do something good, but also because they hope you come back to them for other business at other times. But you don't have to store the wheels with them, don't have to pay any extra cost. You just get that and it's yours. At least you've got something. And it is well worth doing. I mean, we have got like links over on the website to both those Will Aid and Free Wills Month to get that information there. But it's also worth having a look. If you do miss these or can't get an appointment, there are a number of other charities that will give you, a discounted will, or essentially you're giving money to charity rather than to solicitor. So you're doing something with your money throughout the year. So I think we had to redo our wills this year. I think it might have been last year. No, it was this year. And actually I went via Amnesty for that. So basically gave a gift to Amnesty. It might not even been there and then. It might just be actually in the will that I'm giving something to Amnesty when I eventually do die. So definitely worth having a look at this stuff and not delay it. And I guess like you, Amelia, have those conversations.
Trying to have those conversations.
Next story is one, again, this isn't new news. It's been coming for a while, but it's actually started as of the 1st of October. And this is around mobile phone roaming when you are abroad. And the new rules are, and to be fair to some different mobile phone companies, they've been doing this anyway, but this is across the board now. If you are abroad, or in some cases, even at home, if you're close to some border where you accidentally could roam to a different country, it will tell you. You will get a message saying you are now roaming. It will tell you if there are fair usage limits that come with that. It will tell you if you need a spend cap, you can set one to stop those sky high bills that potentially could come along, and also a link for more information. So this is basically going to end that accidental roaming with those accidental bills, which could be, as I said, really expensive. So this is a good thing, but I wouldn't be too complacent about it when you go abroad, because this is starting now. But for most of us, we probably won't go abroad again until next Easter or later. Some will go before that, but you might come around to that and forget about it. I would always start thinking now, having a look at when your current contract, who you're with, if you're under contract, or even if you're on a rolling sim, when does that end and what's the policy? Because you might still get free EU roaming, which is fine, but you might not. And it might be the best thing to do, the cheapest thing to do, rather than buy these little add-ons that you can get when you're away, is just move yourself to one of those networks, which gives you free EU roaming. And it might even save you money as well. You might be able to get a better deal because you're switching and you're trying to find a better price. So definitely look at that. Or if you want to stick with who you're with, you could look at eSIMs as well. I mean, we'll talk about this again probably next summer as well, but it started now. And yeah, good information for that warning, but you still have to do something about it. Just because you're told you're going to be roaming doesn't mean it's going to avoid paying more.
I'm actually going on holiday next week. So I'm one of those who's going to be seeing it firsthand. But I'm very happy with my mobile provider. I'm on giffgaff, and it's one of the providers that still allows you to roam at the same price as what you're paying already, with the same allowances. However, what I will say is if you go on holiday with people who don't have that roaming, you become the phone person. So you're the one who people come with, you need to work out where you're going. You have to be doing all the kind of internet usage, the maps, the Googling. So yeah, you take that responsibility with your roaming. So we also have the introduction of some new laws elsewhere, which means that service workers must take home all of their tips. Now, this applies to England, Scotland, and Wales. And this is brilliant news. I mean, tipping is it's such a talking point, isn't it? People, it's so different wherever you go in the world. There's all of these cultural expectations that you go to America, and because they're paid so badly, they expect the tips if they just open a beer can for you and pass it over the bar because they're on, such poor money. I've had some bad experiences in America before. But then, it's still controversial in the UK with, should you tip, shouldn't you tip? Is it service based or is it kind of expected? Is it, it's often on the bill? Can you ask to get it taken off? How much did you tip? It's a big area. But what has happened, one of the things that I worry about is when I tip, which is Yeah, I kind of tip every time, even if the service hasn't been good, because yeah, I just do because I'm very English like that. But I always ask, are you going to be getting the tip? Because up until this week, it wasn't always guaranteed. So basically, the rules are now saying that they have to go to the staff. Staff can also request a breakdown of how the tips are being shared every 3 months. And if the employer does not pass on the tips, then there's a claim against them potentially at the employment tribunal. So yeah, so it's interesting and good changes, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. It definitely make me feel a lot more comfortable when I'm tipping, particularly the controversies. I remember going back a few years now, were some of those big chains where they would sort of take it all for themselves and divvy it up, not necessarily even amongst like the front of house or the back house, just the management as well. And these people are getting paid more money, so it's good to see they're actually getting it. And interestingly as well, one of the things when I was looking, did this both on the podcast on YouTube and on the website, looking at whether you need to register for self-assessment. And a reminder here, the deadline, if you do need to register, is the 5th of October. So like really soon, just the next day or so. One of the things that potentially could mean, if you get a lot of them, could have to register for self-assessment is tips as well. So just a good chance to remind everyone of that. But yeah, tipping is an interesting one. I know this story is about the UK, but I'll just quickly share with you that when I was away just last month, I was in America, and we know their tipping culture is very different there, and it's an expectation, and that rate where they expect gets higher and higher, and it seems to be more and more now that 20% is seen as an expectation, which is a huge amount to add on to stuff, particularly with, they've had inflation there as well. Things are a lot more expensive. But some places, the machine which pops up, 30% is what they're asking for. Now, they're doing that because if you put 20 and someone goes, no, I'll give 15 or 10. But if you put 30 and the cheapest option is 20, you're more likely to click 20. But yeah, really cheeky. So something, if you are going abroad, particularly to America at any point, watch out for that. Don't over tip. Definitely, tip. You need to tip there, sadly. Well, not sadly, but, tip at a higher rate than you would expect. But don't go that high. That's absolutely too much. And I think, taking advantage of people who want to support people in the service industries. One quick more story, and then we get on to deals of the week. And I don't want to spend too much time on this. This is around Virgin Atlantic points. From the 30th of October, the way that you earn and spend these points is going to change. So you've got 4 weeks pretty much if you want to spend them in the current form to do that, or wait and use them in the new version, which is a little bit complicated. So we haven't got time to go into it here. It's going to, particularly when using them on airlines, it's going to involve dynamic pricing, which, as we've discussed many times before, it's both good and bad. You might pay way over the odds, but you might sometimes be able to get a cheaper deal. And there's all sorts of other changes going on there. Again, as with all the stories we've spoken about today, in our show notes, you can see links to all the articles that support this. Some of them that we've written, some of them we've got from other sources. And for this particular story, an article from Head for Points kind of takes you through what this could mean. It's still not necessarily clear, but take you through what it means. But why I wanted to talk about it here is because there's something that can relate to everyone here, not just people with Virgin Atlantic points. It's generally any loyalty cards you have, any credit card points you've had, there is always a risk that this could happen. The scheme can change, your points can be devalued. We saw it with the Avios to Nectar conversion change. There's been a couple of those the last few years, greatly reducing how much they are worth. So I guess my point really here is if you have a number of points, wherever they are, and you can use them or you can convert them, then it's probably worth doing it. Because you might think, oh, great, I've got this amount of things. I don't need to do it just right now. I'll wait. And suddenly 25% of the value has been cut off it. Or you're having to pay extra to get what you would have done before you thought they were free. I know obviously it can go the other way around and sometimes things do change for the better, but have a look. So Amex points, Avios points, Club Card points, Nectar points, whatever they might be, have a check, see what your balance is right now and see if there are ways that you actually want to spend them and actually use them. Rather than risk them, being worth far less than you wanted, or even sometimes lost and disappear. Because again, sometimes these schemes can close and disappear completely. So that's the last warning there. Let's do deals, shall we, very quickly. What do you want to kick things off?
Yes, I will. So we've got two bank switching deals to talk to you about really briefly. Well, I'll just mention them because there's loads more information over on the website. So there's one from Lloyd's. It's £200, which is a decent amount. So if you're interested in that, it's running until the 10th of December. There's another one from the Cooperative Bank, and that's £75 for switching and then £75 for staying. So there's a number of different hoops to jump through if you want the extra £75. But there's more information on becleverwithyourcash.com. And then free pies. You can get a free Higgidy pie, so it's the 200 gram one in the box from Sainsbury's. If you sign up online, we've got the link on the website, and then just go to your local Sainsbury's and buy pie. And then you just have to follow the instructions, which will be to upload the photo of the receipt, and then you can claim back the cost of the pie up to £3.75.
I'll kick off my deals of the week with Amazon Prime Day, because we mentioned we would come back to this, and we have. Again, shop with intent. Don't just buy things randomly because they're discounted, but there's some early deals already on there which could represent good value. And as ever, a lot of the time this is around Amazon devices. So your Fire Sticks, your Echoes, your Kindles. What I would say as well is just do see if other retailers are price matching, and maybe you could combine that with other promotions such as cashback or a voucher code to bring those prices down a little bit more. It's also one of the things I like to look at when these deals come around, not that I buy them, but always good ones to share with you guys, around gift cards. And there are already discounts, so up to 20% off View and Odeon and Pizza Hut and Prezzo and places like that. There may well be more that come along. There's, if you buy a £50 one for all gift card, which you can use at a number of different retailers, then you get a £5 Amazon voucher on top. So again, the kind of things that you might use anyway, you might spend anyway, they're often good ones to grab. Although, of course, with gift cards, the warning is always make sure you use them and don't have them sitting around, because they could expire or you could lose them or the shops could go bust. And there is another one of these, which I don't think you have to be a Prime member to get. Looking at it, anyone can get it, but I guess you give it a try and find out. This is an Odeon Limitless annual membership. Again, this is being sold by Amazon up until the 9th of October at £135 for the year rather than £179. And that's a really good price. If you are going to have got an Odeon near you and you're happy to go multiple times, you can go as much as you want. That's going to be about £12 a month. So you're saving money if you go, absolutely. If you go 3 times, if not 4, really brings the price down. And sticking with cinemas, Cinema Society is something you often get for free with the likes of a Taste Card membership. Obviously, you're paying for Taste Card, but you get these cinema discounts on top. Santander customers can also get it for free. But for everyone else, if you haven't got Taste Card or Santander account, there is a way to get access to Cinema Society for nothing at all. And this will give you discounts to all the big chains. And it's quite handy when there aren't other special promos or freebies to take advantage of to help you bring down the cost. And the way to do this is via the Lidl Plus app. And this offer comes and goes throughout the year, but at the moment, let's say it's going to end this weekend. So if you haven't already, download the Lidl Plus app. It's quite good to have if you're shopping in Lidl anyway, and then get that free Cinema Society membership. It's there. If you don't use it, you don't use it, but at least you've got it. And the one final one to share with you is a decent offer for rail cards. Obviously, rail cards are great. It's over a third on your travel, depending on which one you go for, which one's going to be best for you. There's ones for young people. There's ones for, they used to call the millennial one, was it? And then there's old people ones, and there's student ones, and there's family ones. There's all sorts out there. If you book that, you buy that via the Virgin Trains app, they will give you £10 back in Virgin points, which you can use on future train bookings. So it's a double win there, double savings on your train travel.
And there you go. That's it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Anything we've talked about so far, the deals, the articles, and more is over at becleverwithyourcash.com. So please do head over there to check that out. We'll be back, as I said, with another episode on Tuesday. So we'll see you then. Cheers.